Hi, and welcome to this presentation on the G Center. So the G Center is the center right at the very middle of the graph, and it has to do with love. So how do you love? What do you love? What kind of love do you express? Your sense of identity, so who you are, your direction, where you're going, and also your behavior. Half of the planet has the center defined, half the planet has the center undefined. And, like the solar plexus, the like the ego, and then this center, the G, these are kind of in some places, or at least by my teacher, considered, one of the most challenging centers to have undefined. And I'll share a little bit about why. But yeah, it's also a real, like all centers, it's like an Achilles heel, but also a gift. So yeah, let's dive in and explore this center. So those of us that have this center defined, myself included, we tend to have consistent expressions of love and identity, and also direction, and behavior. So there's it's fixed, it's consistent, it's defined, and this is what those with this center defined put out there into the world, in a consistent way. The unhealthy expression of the defined G center is the assumption that the mind is in control of the direction and using the mind to control the direction. Part of the mythology of human design is that we do have a fixed trajectory in life, and that it's set. Our direction is actually set, and our body knows our direction, and it's our mind that tries to interfere and freaks out and kind of gets in the way. So, I can definitely say from experience that the times when my mind has really gotten really involved and attached to me having certain direction or certain outcome have been the most challenging times, have been the most resistant times of my life. So I can really relate to this slide. Yeah. Yeah. Making mental decisions. This is a really good depiction of my teacher John. Just where he comes from in his teaching, because he is very hardcore, and really wants his students to embrace this knowledge on the level of the body. So nothing like a good car crash to drill the point in. This is beautiful, and I really do love this, because I see that life is so complicated, and it has its own intelligence that's far beyond what I can possibly imagine. And when I surrender, oh my gosh, it's just so much easier and so much better. And there is a direction for my life. I might not always know what it is. Having the defined G, sometimes I do know what it is. Sometimes I get a sense of my direction. I get a sense of who I am, a sense of my identity. It's like many years ago, probably, I don't know, eight years ago, I wrote on a piece of paper, my contribution is to live in a world where everyone comes from their essence. And when I wrote those words, I really meant it. Like, I really felt at a deep level inside of myself that what I was here to do was help people come from the essence of who they are in all that they do. Um, and that was before I created, Discover Your Genius. And, um, even now, 8 years later, teaching human design, it's also what I'm doing. So there is an identity to Karen McMullen that's consistent and fixed. And, that's part of having this defined G center. One of the unhealthy expressions of having the center defined is putting pressure on open Gs or undefined Gs to choose an identity. As we're going to get into in a minute here, people that have this center undefined don't have a fixed identity. They don't have a fixed direction. So someone like me can come along and say, hey, you really should know who you are, where you're going. And wow, I can see that I've done this in my career. Oh my goodness. A lot of people who come to me with the undefined G are really craving to know who they are and craving to know their direction. And I do still find with the undefined Gs that there is still a them. There's still an identity there. It's more fluid. It's more flowing. It's more varied. But part of having a defined G is that, and when you meet a person with an open or undefined G, is that there can be this like kind of impulse or desire to give them a direction. And I've found this quite a few times with different friends of mine that have the undefined G, where I meet them and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, what about this direction for you? And that's actually part of how this mechanic is designed to function, is that, undefined Gs are meant to have their direction kind of come to them through other people. So that's how it's supposed to be, but it's also a potentially unhealthy dynamic when the defined G gets attached or starts to add pressure to them choosing the identity that the defined G thinks is right for them. So really it ultimately comes down to just respecting other people. Yeah, this is beautiful. It's so beautiful. I just love seeing this, in myself. I love seeing it in others. One of the big things that I bring consistently is love of the self. I have this gate defined and I have it connected to quite a few channels. So that's something that is naturally something that I am consistently expressing and modeling in the world. I'll just let you take that in for a moment. Even just there, I just modeled love of the self. Taking care of my body. Okay, so the healthy expression, they have a fixed direction through their design. They can share with and comfort others about the direction that we're going in as a species, as all of us. And also, I see in my work, having a defined G, that's really what I've been doing, is I've been comforting people about their identity and their direction. really comfortable with knowing that strategy and authority are taking them in the right direction and bringing the right kinds of love into their life. Unhealthy initiates a new direction or love from a mental story. Oh my God. How many times have I done that? Wow. Oh, so much hardship that potentially could have been avoided, but wasn't in the cards, I guess. And initiates leading others. Okay, so let's look at the undefined G. So because having this center undefined basically means that you don't have a fixed or consistent access to a particular way of loving, identity, direction, or even behavior. So those of us that have this center undefined, I'm not one of them. If you have the center undefined, you're more meant to be fluid in your direction, fluid in your identity, maybe even having multiple directions, multiple identities. Like when you're hanging out with the bikers, you're taking in and amplifying their identity. And so you become like the bikers. When you're hanging out with the bankers, you're taking in their identity and amplifying it. So you're becoming more like a banker. And when you're hanging out with the little old nannies, grannies that are knitting, you are taking in and amplifying their identity and direction. And so you become like them. So there's a real chameleon quality to those that have the center undefined, which is so beautiful because it makes these people magical at relating to others, that they really can get a sense of who someone is. Wow, through, I think a deeper way than I can really understand. The unhealthy version of this is that they end up, because there's no consistent fixed identity or direction or love, they end up constantly in the search for that. And so their life force gets absorbed in looking for love and direction and identity, which is, not really what their life is about. So again, this idea that there is a magnetic monopole, that's part of human design. I don't really want to get into it too much, but it's this idea that we're being pulled like a magnet in a certain direction. And those that have a center defined, they can kind of get a sense of their own direction and know where they're going. They're more, purposeful in a way because they're like, they know what they're doing. They know where they're going. And those that have the center undefined, they don't necessarily have awareness about their direction. It's not that they don't have a direction, it's that they have less conscious access to it. And so they don't necessarily know where they're going. So yeah, I mean, it would be easy for an undefined G to look around at the defined G's out there and say, oh wow, like look at that person, like she really knows who she is, or he really knows where he's going, and think, oh, there's something wrong with me. I should know who I am. I should know where I'm going. But that's precisely the conditioning that I would love to invite you to avoid, is that it's totally okay and it's totally natural for you not to have a solid sense of who you are and a solid sense of where you're going. So really let it be okay that your direction is being revealed to you, and it's going to be revealed to you through probably other people in your life. And you might not have just one direction, you might have many, many directions. So yeah, making lack of consistency a problem is painful. One of my friends that has this center Undefined, really enjoys the feeling of like this kind of blankness or emptiness of not being something all the time, and likes to come back to this experience of just being this blank slate, and then hang out with someone for a little while and become like them. So if you're hanging out with a defined G and you have the undefined G, I think that's a big compliment to the person that you're hanging out with, because it basically is saying you dig them, you dig their identity, you dig their direction. And when that person's hanging out with you, like, since you are taking in and amplifying their identity and direction, it's kind of like they get to hang out with themselves in a way that there's a lot that you guys can share together. There's a saying or a joke in human design that you don't want to go to the party of your friend who's the undefined G, because you might like that person, but you only like them because when you're hanging out, they're just like you. And at their party, you're going to find the granny, the lawyer, the banker, the biker, like a whole hodgepodge of characters who may not at all get along or have anything in common. And I've definitely seen this with my undefined G friends, where all of a sudden I'm hanging out with them with other people that I've never met. And I'm like, who are you? You're a different person. I don't even like you, but we're the best of friends when it's just the two of us. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Just not making it a problem is really the secret. What is my role? How can I find love? I've seen this, with my single friends that have undefined G, like that they're like doing all kinds of crazy stuff to find love, like online dating and just having it consume them. I would say, looking for love is quite an obsession of mine too, as a defined G. So I can only imagine that, those with the undefined G are just taking in and amplifying that, looking for love. But I don't know that it's not, I think it's to a lesser degree, let's just put it that way, than what I've seen in the undefined G people. Where the natural or healthy set point for the undefined G is that they allow love to find them, that they allow their direction and identity to find them. So I think this is a healthy perspective for all of us. Can you live without being loved by someone, and can you really exist on your own, or are you making decisions solely for the purpose of finding love? To inquire into that, because this is something that can run your life, rather than you really being true to yourself and your trajectory. So in surrendering to strategy and authority, they may find that others take them to the right places. They can relax into not being in charge of identity, direction, and love. I think that's really beautiful. It's an invitation to surrender in those areas. So place is very important to people with the undefined G. Notice what places feel like to you. And if you like the place, then great. If you don't like the place, get out of there. So the wrong place equals the wrong people, and that you take in the wrong conditioning. that's something I was going to mention earlier, which I think is important to know for the undefined G, is that you're deeply conditioned by the people you spend a lot of time with. So really take a look at who you're spending time with, and do you like being around those people, and do you want to become like them? Are they people that are really healthy? Um, and and also giving yourself time away from people just because they are such a conditioning force for you. So the right people, the right opportunities are in the right place. So finding the right place is really imperative for the undefined G's. And this includes like what town you live in, what home you live in, what room you work in, what restaurant you go to, what seat you sit at the restaurant. Like when I'm going out for dinner with my undefined G friends, I ask them where they want to go and do they like the place? Do you like this restaurant? Do you feel like you want to be here? Where do you want to sit? And they know where they want to sit. They always know. They always know if they like the place or not. There's no gray area for these people. They know. And that's something to honor. They're super sensitive to place. So if you give them that opportunity to honor themselves about where they are, they will be grateful. They will be relieved, because it can be a source of, tension, inner tension, to be, so sensitive to place and yet to feel like it's selfish or somehow indulgent to listen to that. And what I found is when I share this information with people with undefined G, that they just feel such a relief. I like this one, comfortable with not knowing who they are. Also recognizes they're a mirror for the identity of others. I think that's a really special gift that people have with this center undefined, is that they really do have the ability to take in who someone is and reflect it back to them, which is so helpful to people. So just knowing that you have that gift it's a beautiful thing. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing what you discover as you experiment with the G Center.